Hi and welcome to my ActiveCampaign tutorial video. My name is Jacob Monash, I'm an ActiveCampaign certified consultant, and today I'm going to be walking you through the basics of ActiveCampaign's automation maps, how to use triggers, how to use actions, as well as running through some of the steps in terms of what you can achieve with them. So without further ado, let's dive in. To get to the automations in ActiveCampaign, click this icon on the left. It'll take you to this screen here which lists your current automations. When you're ready to create a new one, you can click this button in the top right. It will present you with starting from scratch, which will be a blank canvas. There's also some recommended and template automations that you can choose from. Let's start with start from scratch. So here's the automation canvas, and the top left is where you can name your automation. On the top right is where you'll mark it to active when you want it to be running. View contacts will let you see the contacts who have been added to this automation in the past or currently. And this button here is for revision. So if you want to go back to an earlier version of your automation, you can click this button here. Now here, this main part is the canvas, and on the canvas you're going to place all of the different parts of the automation. And really mainly there's two different parts. There are triggers, which are, as it says, a way to start this automation. So examples are when somebody subscribes to a list, when a contact is tagged, and then the actions are what the automation actually does. So they may be sending an email or tagging the contact. So why don't we take a look at some triggers and see what we've got. So some common ones you'll probably be using first are going to be subscribing to a list. So when somebody subscribes to a list, trigger the automation. There's also when a contact is tagged. There is, let me find this. There's the tag. There's also when a contact makes a purchase. This is if you have an e-commerce store connected like Shopify or WooCommerce. And then there's also abandoned carts, which are a very useful automation for recovering revenue when people leave checkout without purchasing. And then if you're using the CRM portion of ActiveCampaign as an add-on, you may want to trigger automations based on when a deal changes stages in a deal pipeline. So those are all ways we can trigger an automation. And if I go back to subscribes to a list, you can see that when I click it, I'll get various options to set it up. So for example, for the subscribes to a list trigger, I can choose a specific list that I want to trigger the automation rather than just any list. And I can choose this option here. Now, important note, for the subscribe to a list trigger, this doesn't matter. This doesn't do anything. But the subscribe to a list trigger can only ever be triggered by a contact once. So changing this runs option won't affect anything. And that's mainly just for this specific trigger. All the others can run multiple times if you choose to do so. So let's add an any list subscribe trigger so you can see what that looks like. You'll see it's right at the top. All triggers are always at the top. And you can see I can actually add other start triggers so that there can be multiple ways for somebody to trigger an automation. All right, let's take a look at action steps. So what are the basics? Well, obviously ActiveCampaign is an email marketing platform. So one of the big ones is sending an email. When you send an email, you can use past campaigns. So if you've already sent an email and you just want to reuse it, click this option, or you can create a new email, start from scratch. And then when you do that, if we do, for example, a blank canvas, we get these options. So this will be very similar to if you've sent a campaign in ActiveCampaign. You'll give it a name, you'll give it a subject line, pre-header, choose who it's sent from, and the reply address, choose what tracking you want. By the way, I always recommend that Open Link and Google Analytics are chosen for tracking. And then down here, you'll be able to design the email just like you would with a campaign. Okay, so let's pop that in just to use as sort of a placeholder. You can see that a note is there that it's not ready and needs further details. Okay, what about some other steps we can add in? So there is another big one is a wait step. Obviously, if you're sending a welcome series, or a drip series, you might call it, you're going to send that over a period of time. So you want them to receive the first email right away. Then maybe a day or two goes by, and then they should receive the next email. So there's a few different options here. Most of the time, with my clients, I'm picking a set period of time. That is the typical kind of delay we want. So we can wait for a day, and then we might add another email in here. Okay, another step you might be adding is a subscribe step. So obviously in this case, they are already subscribing and that's triggering the automation. But if, for example, you have a contact who comes into the system without being added to a list, you may want to subscribe them there because a contact must be subscribed to at least one list for you to send them an email. So if they don't have a list, you can always ensure that by using the automation to subscribe them. And this one's very simple. You just choose select and then you choose the list you want to subscribe them to. Next up, we've got tagging. So just like a tag can trigger an automation, a tag can also be used as an action. So you might want to tag somebody when they received all of the emails in your automation and say something like, well, let's tag them and let's do it welcome complete. So now when they reach the end of the series, they will be tagged. Now, before we move on to how we sort of branch or play with the workflow of an automation, let's just go back to the wait step because there were some other options there that may be useful depending on your use case. So you can see there are some other options here for the wait conditions. It can wait until a specific day and or time, until a custom field matches, or until specific conditions are met. So basically what you can do is you can have contacts wait there indefinitely until they meet certain conditions. This may be useful, for example, if you want somebody to interact with you in a certain way before they're allowed to move through the rest of the automation. For example, let's say you sent a new member an email to complete their onboarding, but you don't want to follow up with them until they've done it. So you could say wait until condition has been met. For example, perhaps your onboarding tags them in a certain way, and then the automation will wait until they are tagged, and then it will proceed with the rest of the information. Alrighty, so let's talk about some workflow steps that you can put into your automation to help people move through the automation. So the first that's pretty common that we use, that I use for my clients, is called an if-else step. You could also call this a split or a branch. Basically what's going to happen is that the automation is going to be split into two branches, and you're going to use these conditions here to decide who goes to the left and who goes to the right. So a condition could be something like they have a tag and the tag is ActiveCampaign user. Let's save this and see what it looks like. Now you can see that the automation is actually branching into two different branches. So what this is saying is, and it's quite nice because ActiveCampaign lays it out for you, does contact match these conditions? Do they have the tag ActiveCampaign user? If they do, they'll go to the left, and that's the yes path. And if not, or any other case, they will go to the right and down the no path. So this branching is really powerful for personalization. So for example, if you have new subscribers coming onto your list and you've also included some data about them, their preferences or their activity that you can use to personalize the emails they receive, you can use the branches to send them down different pathways that are more relevant to them. So for example, one of my clients sells emergency beacons, and if when they subscribe, they indicate that they are, boat users or hikers, they will go down different branches in the welcome series automation that will deliver them different emails based on their preferences. And that personalization is a really powerful way to speak to the different audiences within your email list. And really, it all comes down to using these branches effectively. Branches can also be used for other kinds of custom workflows. For example, you may want to not send an email if somebody hasn't done something or has dumped something. And to do that, you might want to combine it with the next action I'll talk about, which is the go-to step. So if we look up here and we click and type in go, just as it says here, it's a way to basically move people through the automation in different ways. So if I click this, you'll see that it says select an action to connect to, and I can select this email right here. And now you can see this dotted blue line is formed between them, indicating that it is connected. And remember to click save. I just noticed that the little notification about the email being incomplete was hiding it. So click save, and you'll see that line has now become grayed, which means it's properly in place now. So as you can see, if somebody does not have the tag ActiveCampaign user, they will go to the right, and instead of receiving this email, they will skip straight past it and on to the next email. So again, another great way to personalize your automations, send or not send emails to certain people based on what they have or haven't done. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is more complicated. It's definitely on the more complicated end of ActiveCampaign's automation features, but it's also one of the really powerful features that also a lot of email marketing platforms don't have. So I'll try to go over it briefly and know that goals have a lot of power to them. So goals can be used basically to allow you to skip contacts down an automation, so that no matter where somebody is in the automation up above, you can pull them right down to the end if they meet the conditions of the goal. So let's add one in to see how that looks. So I'm going to search for goal. I'm going to pop it in. So this is very similar to the if-else branch. You'll see that you're going to select conditions to be met. So let's say that I want people to skip the welcome series if they've already become a client. There's no reason to send them welcome series, promoting our products if they've already a client. So to do that, we're going to pop in here, tag exists, current client. And then you can see below here a couple of important decisions. When the goal is below the contact position or anywhere, and what happens if the contact does not meet the goal conditions. So let's leave these as is, and I'll talk through what happens. So now that I've got the goal here, if a contact is moving through any part of this automation above this step, and they are tagged with current client, they will automatically jump down to this goal step here. And that's why I've called it a welcome series skip, because it is enabling them to skip the rest of the emails that are in this automation. Now, whatever happens below will still happen. So let's go back and look at those options again. So there's a couple here. When the goal is below contact position or anywhere. So I would typically choose anywhere. It's the simplest one. Below contact position means it's only if the contact can trace a path to that goal directly. So for example, if this branch didn't have this go-to action, and let's add a little wait step here, 2 days. So if I changed this goal to below contact position, and a contact is currently here, they won't skip to this goal if they are tagged current client. So that's a little differentiator. If you choose anywhere, it means no matter where they are in the automation, they will skip to this goal step. The other option is also really useful because it helps your goals function in different ways. So if the contact does not meet the goal conditions, you can get them to continue, wait until the conditions are met, or end the automation. So for this case here, where I'm doing a skip, I'm going to let them continue through the automation, because basically when somebody if somebody doesn't skip, I still want them to flow through the goal as regular. However, I'm going to show you a different way we can use goals that is really handy for setting up things like reminders for a specific upcoming event. So I've gone ahead and changed up the automation a little bit. And now think about in this use case that I have a webinar coming up on October 11th, and I want to send them a reminder email a day before and about a week before the webinar to make sure they're reminded that the event is coming up. Now we can't use simple wait steps because if somebody signs up on the 9th of October, I don't want them to receive this first reminder email because it will be wrong. It will tell them that the event is coming up. Two reasons. Firstly, it'll tell them the event's coming up in a week when it's not. It'll be in a couple of days. And secondly, the wait step wouldn't work anymore for people. If I put a wait step that's condition was wait until October 3rd, then anyone who signs up after October 3rd will get stuck on that wait step because it will never be October 3rd, 2025 again if they've signed up after that date. And so that becomes where it's really important to use goals because we can skip emails depending on when people come into the automation. So if somebody comes in on October 1st, they will get to this goal and they will wait. And that's because we've chosen the wait until the goal conditions are met option here. So here we're coming to why this decision is so important when you're using goals in your automation. If we choose wait, then when somebody enters this automation, they will stop here. So it's kind of like a wait until step. We're waiting until the date is October 3rd, 2025 at 9 a.m. And then it will move them to the next step. However, when I add the second goal, what's going to happen is that if somebody subscribes, is added to this automation on the 5th of October, they're going to first hit this goal and nothing's going to happen because the current date is not before October 3rd. So they are just going to stop at this goal. They're going to wait until the conditions are met. And then once October 10th, 9 a.m. comes around, they will then move into this goal and receive that reminder. And they will only receive that 1 day reminder, not the 1 week reminder as well, which would just be confusing. So that's one of the examples of how goals, a couple of examples of how goals can be really helpful in your automations. Very powerful, but quite complicated. And like I said before, they kind of offer you this way to work automations that you really can't find in almost any other popular email marketing platform. Okay, so I've spent a long time talking about goals, but that's because in my work I find them so incredibly important for complex automations. But I thought I'd finish up with some of the other actions that aren't used as often, but are still really handy. So one of them is update a contact. In this case, you're going to update a contact's field values. So you choose a value such as their something like this. You can choose whatever you want the new value to be, or you can clear it. Another one that can come in handy is the internal notification. So if you go into search and you look up this one here, send an internal notification. This is really great if you want to get confirmations to your internal team about how people are progressing through their automations. So one of my clients has an automation set up with a welcome series, and they like to get notified when somebody has reached the end. It kind of allows them to know that somebody has kind of been warmed up by the welcome series, and maybe it's now time for them to check in personally with a bit of a personal touch email. So that's when the internal notification can be really handy. There is also the update stage. So again, if you're using the CRM add-on for ActiveCampaign, you can use automations to update all the different parts of a deal, and often that will be something like a stage, the stage in a pipeline. Then I just wanted to highlight that because ActiveCampaign has lots of direct integrations with other apps, you can find a whole suite of actions down the side here. And there's also a bunch of actions I haven't mentioned that are also in there. Those are I mostly haven't mentioned them because they just don't use them very often in all the automations that I've created for clients over 5 years. So that's it for this video. That was an introduction to all of the most important steps that you'll find in an ActiveCampaign automation. There's one more point I'll add, which is this new feature that was recently added, this sort of sidebar here, just some extra useful settings for the automation. This is very new, and I'm very excited to see it. This will allow you to ensure that the contact can only enter the automation once or any number of times. It's especially important if you have multiple triggers, because a contact can enter through different triggers, and that may allow them to go through it more than once. So for something like a welcome series where you really don't want that person, in most cases, to receive the welcome series and duplicate emails more than once, then it's a nice way to make sure they only get it once. And then there's also some other options here that allow you to manage different aspects. This one is useful because if somebody unsubscribes from your emails, they will still keep going through the automation. This confuses people sometimes. So a contact will still keep going through the automation even if they're unsubscribed. They just won't be sent any of the send an email steps. But they will still go through the automation. So this option here allows you to say, well, if they've unsubscribed, I want them to exit the automation. It's not important anymore because it's just sending or not sending them any emails. And then here you can find various reports and also various ways to edit the messages that are part of your campaign. Thanks for checking out my ActiveCampaign video. My name's Jacob Monash. I run a small email marketing studio, and we specialize in ActiveCampaign. In fact, we're one of only 120 businesses in the world who is certified by ActiveCampaign to work as consultants. My goal is also to become the most helpful ActiveCampaign expert in the world, which is why I'm releasing these videos. I also got a blog, which you can check out in the description below, that has more guides and tips on ActiveCampaign and email marketing in general. In the description, you'll also find a link to my website. And if you reach the end of this video and you're thinking, oh, I just need a little bit of help here, please feel free to reach out. You can book in a free consultation. We can chat about where you're at. I'll try to help you where I can, and maybe we'll be a good fit for working together. But until my next video, thank you and good luck.